Let me start by saying something that sounds obvious, but apparently needs to be said out loud. Chimpanzees are not your friends. I know cartoons and children movies have done a lot of damage to public perception here. Somewhere along the way, people started thinking chimps are just these little fuzzy humans that like bananas and high fives. That is a lie. A chimpanzee is what happens when evolution takes a human, removes the tax-paying responsibilities,
taxation is theft,
multiplies the aggression by 5, and then gives it the grip strength of your average gooner. And people still try to keep these things as pets, which is insane. Because a chimpanzee is one of the few animals on earth that can look you directly in the eyes and make the conscious decision to ruin your life. See, chimpanzees are incredibly intelligent, like scarily intelligent. We share about 98% of our DNA with them, which means biologically speaking, a chimpanzee is basically your distant cousin that grew up in the jungle and joined a fight club. And that intelligence comes with a personality that is petty, emotional, territorial, and occasionally violent in ways that will make a prison inmate very uncomfortable. And if you ever hear someone say, "Oh, chimps are just like humans," understand something very important. That is not a compliment, because humans have done some wild things throughout history. Wars, riots, Twitter arguments. Chimpanzees do all that, but without laws. Let me explain. First off, chimps are ridiculously strong, like cartoonishly strong. People always hear that statistic and don't believe it, but chimpanzees are estimated to be 1.5 to 2 times stronger than your average human pound for pound, which means a chimp that weighs 120 pounds can easily overpower most grown adults. And the scary part isn't the strength, it's how they use it. Because when chimps fight, they don't fight like we do. Humans might throw hands a bit, maybe throw a chair or two, maybe even yell a lot. Chimpanzees go straight to medieval warfare. Their favorite strategy is what scientists politely call targeted aggression, which is a very scientific way of saying they aim for parts of your body you would very much like to keep. Eyes, fingers, face, nuts. Yes, genitals. If a chimpanzee decides you're an enemy, it's not trying to win the fight. It's trying to permanently uninstall pieces of you. And they do this because chimps evolved in extremely competitive social environments. Chimp society is basically an organized crime. They live in groups called troops, which in of itself gives off so much violent aura. But inside of those troops, there is a strict hierarchy. At the top is the alpha male, and underneath him are males constantly plotting to rise to power like it's the jungle Game of Thrones. And the way chimps climb that ladder is violence, but not random violence, strategic violence. Because chimps are smart enough to form alliances. 2 or 3 chimps might secretly team up against a higher ranking male. They'll wait for the right moment when he's alone, then jump him like it's a coordinated street fight. And if they win, new management. Chimp politics are basically WWE with real consequences. Now here's where things get even darker though. Chimpanzees are one of the few animals known to wage organized war. I'm not exaggerating. Scientists studying chimp populations have documented a group of chimps forming patrols along the edges of their territory. They move quietly through the forest, looking for rival chimps from neighboring groups. And if they find one that's alone, that chimp is not making it back to his mama. The group will surround it and attack it together until the rival is eliminated, then slowly start taking over the rival group's territory. Which means chimp warfare looks less like a bar fight and more like a hostile corporate takeover, except the paperwork is teeth. And this behavior isn't rare either. It's been documented in multiple chimp populations across Africa, which is wild when you realize you're watching primates conduct coordinated military strategy. But if you really want to understand why trusting a chimpanzee is a terrible idea, we have to talk about the mood swings. Because chimps have emotions that are very similar to humans. They can feel happiness, sadness, jealousy, anger. And the problem is, they don't exactly process those emotions like a therapist would recommend. A chimpanzee can go from calm to chaos faster than a toddler who skipped a nap. One moment the primate is over here chilling, next moment it's flipping tables like someone canceled his Netflix subscription. And this unpredictability is exactly why so many stories of pet chimps end so badly. You've probably seen the videos of people raising chimps like children. They dress them up, feed them snacks, let them sit on the couch like they're part of the family. And for a while, everything looks cute, all fine and dandy. Because baby chimps, I can't admit, they are adorable. They're small, playful, curious, basically fuzzy toddlers. But then puberty shows up, and suddenly that chimp is a 150-pound muscle goblin with unresolved anger issues. And the people raising them realize way too late that they've been babysitting a future Khabib with canines. There was a famous case in the United States where a pet chimp that had been raised in a household suddenly attacked a visitor. And when I say attacked, I mean the chimp basically treated this person like an enemy combatant. The injuries were severe, and the situation forced a lot of people to confront something very uncomfortable. Chimpanzees are not domesticated animals. Dogs have been living alongside humans for tens of thousands of years. We literally shaped their evolution. Chimps are still wild. Even if they're born in captivity, even if they grow up around humans, that instinct is still there. And sometimes it flips on like a light switch. Now, to be fair, chimps aren't evil. They're just extremely capable animals operating on instincts that evolved in a very competitive environment. In the wild, those instincts help them survive. Chimps hunt monkeys. Yes, you heard that right. Chimpanzees are not strictly fruit eaters like people think. They're opportunistic hunters, and one of their favorite meals is that monkey meat. Groups of chimps will actually coordinate hunts where they chase monkeys through trees until one gets caught. And once the monkey is captured, well, the jungle doesn't have the facilities to stop this level of hate crime, which means the same intelligence that allows chimps to solve problems also allows them to become terrifyingly efficient predators when they need to be. And that combination, intelligence, strength, and aggression, is exactly why chimps can be so dangerous. Because a lot of animals rely on instinct alone. A lion sees prey, it chases. A shark smells blood, it bites. But a chimpanzee can plan. It can recognize individuals, it can hold grudges. And if that sounds suspiciously human, that's because it is. Scientists have observed chimps reconciling after fights, over here forming friendships, and even showing empathy. But they also observe chimps displaying cruelty that feels disturbingly familiar. There are cases of chimps bullying weaker members of the group, stealing their food, even attacking infants during conflicts between rival groups, which is the kind of behavior that makes researchers pause and go, yeah, we might be more closely related to these things than we're comfortable admitting. And that's the real lesson here. Chimpanzees are not cartoon characters. They are incredibly intelligent animals with complex social lives, powerful bodies, and emotional brains that sometimes make questionable decisions. In other words, they're basically humans with less impulsive control and more upper body strength. And that is exactly the type of creature you should maintain a respectful distance from, because the same intelligence that lets chimps learn sign language or use tools is the same intelligence that can look at you, evaluate the situation, and decide whether you're friend, foe, or lunch. And if the answer happens to be foe, understand something very clearly. You are not winning that fight. Not because you're weak, but because chimps fight like they're trying to collect trophies. So if you find yourself in a situation where someone says, "Don't worry, he's friendly," while standing next to a chimpanzee, you might want to slowly start backing away, because that dude is stupid. Preferably toward a door though, because trusting a chimpanzee is like trusting a slightly more extroverted Michael Myers with no knife, but he can still use one if he wanted to. Sure, it might behave most of the time, but the moment something goes wrong, you're gonna wish you kept social distancing. See ya.